Welcome back to Mystic Portal Emporium. I'm the Eternal GM.
I am Narg and I am tired.
Well, I hope to get you a little more woken up because this is supposed to be your topic of being able to go off about the Monster Hunter series. I got a series of questions we're going to go through, and I know that you already prepped for the first question, and well, two questions actually.
And that's why I'm
So
tired.
we'll just dive right into it. So, what, if anything, did the movie get correct about the game series?
Okay. Okay. Well, it's hard to tell with the lighting and in various scenes, but it is in fact a black Diablos in the desert. And the fact that it is doing what it is doing in terms of seeking out and busting up these ships and people is is accurate to what they would do because the black ones are the females which are currently either in heat or pregnant, and not too long after defeating it they find an oasis with cactus, with lots of cactus growth, and the Diablos is an herbivore, so that is mostly what it would be doing, is trying to defend its food source for not only for it but for the young that it would soon bear as well. Apsaros living in giant herds, that's pretty spot on. Let's see. Thrathlos hunting the Apsaros. I assume that's what it was doing, was hunting those Apsaros. Considering one was on fire, I would say that's pretty spot on. They do typically go after the herbivores as soon as they prefer to catch prey someone else has taken for them. They do like much like a bear would. You know, they're more into getting an easy meal, but saves on firepower, which they don't like to expend a lot of. Um, let's see. The chef, despite being able to speak their language and like they can communicate, it in fact meowed instead of speaking a language, which is accurate. They don't speak; they just mostly meow. The language, I don't know if it's the same language, but the fact that they aren't speaking English is good because every time you talk to someone, it's gibberish, like The Sims. So, um, that's about the extent of the generosity I can grant this movie.
All right. Well, then, past that, I guess you have fun on what all they got wrong. Let us know how bad they butchered the original lore and source material.
Let's see. Um, my biggest critique with this film starts at the very beginning. Um, White Lightning by George Jones is being played, and no one knows who George Jones is at this current time in human history, as one of the soldiers asks who George Jones is. And I find this to be a great insult to music in general, to George Jones's memory, and to my own heritage. So that's one thing I'd like to bring up. My second thing is they have disgraced the name of George Jones by putting his music in this dumpster fire of a movie. Let that be known. A lot of these are going to be movie critiques and nitpicks more so than they would be a monster. There are Monster Hunter ones, but there's such as the portal scene almost gave me a fucking seizure because there was just constant light flashing in my face, and I don't even have epilepsy, so I could imagine what someone with epilepsy must have gone through if they ever watched this by accident. So one thing that's very interesting is when we get into the desert. I'm assuming this is the Wildspire Waste. That's the only named desert on the new continent. When we get to the Wildspire Waste, there is a giant skeleton just lying about in the desert that the soldiers find themselves inside of when they first get there. Upon inspection of the skeleton, I have deduced it to, in fact, be a Daran Moran skeleton, which is an elder dragon that burrows through sand and lives in vast deserts. Um, and I can barely read my own handwriting, so let me just go back up to here to make sure that that is, in fact, the name of this thing, and I didn't write it down wrong. I'm pretty sure Dal Moran is the name. Yeah, Darren Moran. So Darren Moran, you can really tell because of the fact of the skull that you can see that it is in fact what that is. What's very odd is that despite the fact of it being, pretty much the only elder dragon that's known to really inhabit the Great Deserts, we saw them in, Monster Hunter's fourth generation, which it's odd that a lot of the monsters in this movie seem to come from either were in or came from the fourth generation, despite the fact that we've never seen any evidence to suggest that they even live in the fifth gen continent. Um, and then Dara Moran being one of those. We have no evidence to suggest that they even live anywhere on that continent, and we have no idea how one would even get there. We know they live in the deserts. I don't believe one would swim there. It's possible, and there may have been a land bridge eons ago where they crossed, but the next thing would be the Nersilla. So the fact that we do see Nersilla is interesting. Out of all monsters that, you know, in the I'm just gonna be generic and say the bugs because a lot of people don't understand the specifications of the words I'm saying. But out of all the bugs we could have seen, it's interesting they picked Nersilla. It's also odd that they put them in group like that. These are large monsters. They don't typically share colonies like some do. At least the ones with queens and whatnot. So that was a bit odd that they done that. But I'm willing to put my just suspend belief because we're in the new world. Maybe it affects the Nersilla different. But we again have never seen Nersilla in the new world. The only I'm pretty sure the new continent is where Rise also takes place because we see a lot of the new world monsters like Anjanath there, and we've never seen them in the old world. So I'm going to say so therefore, Raknakadaki and the subspecies of Pyraknakadaki are the only. I want to say I can't remember the fucking actual term for the spiders, but let me find the fucking name before I have an OCD attack. The Temnocerans. They are the only two Temnocerans that we see in the new world. I mean, there's plenty of Neopterans, but they're not. The only time that might help is if we had the Vespoid Queen, and I don't even think. Yeah, Vespoids are in the new world, but still. So what's interesting is that they showed the Nersilla to be afraid of the daylight, as when they tried to chase the captain out of the hole they were in, they shrieked a little bit and moved back when they realized what time of day it was. Nersilla can be hunted in the day. I have hunted them in the day, and it's very odd that they would give them some sort of fear of sunlight, making them like not even just a nocturnal species, but making them straight up afraid, almost. Which is also odd considering that the group was ambushed in the daylight. So I'm not entirely sure why all of a sudden now that's a problem. Let's see. Also, Nersilla has never been shown to live in any arid desert environments. Anytime you find them, they're in forests or rainforests. I don't know where they got a desert in their mind for that, but especially considering that there are rainforests and jungles and such in the new continent. But I did have a remark about what I believed I think they just call him Hunter. I had some quarrels about what the hell he was doing. I believed at the time he was praying to an idol of some sort. And then I later found out I guess that's something to do with his family. So those are idols of his family. that died, I guess. So I was like, we have never seen any religious kind of things in Monster. A lot of the monsters have been revered as gods just due to their sheer power, and because elder dragons themselves are very unusual in nature, but no actual deities have ever been depicted. Um, the fact that he used. So I've done research into these weapons, and every single weapon that has been used in this movie is the standard issued guild weaponry that the guild gives you when you go on the expedition to the new world. This is all your base rank shit. Even assuming that they have it upgraded, which I highly doubt they do because they have stock of it. They had literally in those boats stockpiles of this. So this isn't. Given the sheer amount of weaponry they have access to, none of this has been upgraded. This is all standard issue guild equipment. That being said, the great sword that he wields is from the bone tree. It's the jaw blade. There's no fucking way in hell he's one-shotting Ernestella with that thing. He straight up split this thing's head open like it was a watermelon at a Gallagher show. That doesn't happen. So that's a little odd. When they're chasing, or when they're trying to get to the Humvee, and they're being chased by the Diablos under the sand, they trick it into thinking they're over there, and then it turns around and it's like, oh no, they're over here, and it starts digging after them. They stopped, and when they stopped, so did the Diablos. That's not. They would not. It would not do that. The moment you stopped, right where it last felt your movement is where it's gonna pop out and try to get your ass. And even movement itself isn't a trigger in the games. They'll just hunt you down. They'll seek you out. They know where you are. And if you don't move, they'll hit you. If you do move, then they know you're running and they'll chase after you that way. There's no. It's not gonna stop magically like Tremors. Like that's not what this is. Let's see. Oh yeah. He took the very same greatsword and jammed it directly into the skull of the Black Diablos. That weapon is nowhere near capable of doing any sort of damage to the head of a Diablos, let alone a Black Diablos. At the level that it is, I don't even believe it has green sharpness. Give me one moment. I'll even look that up right now. Let's see. Let's see. Oh, this is lovely. This is Dark Souls and Dungeons and Dragons. I'm looking for Monster Hunter World. Let's see. That's not even the Defender. It's the. Let me go to the tree. Greatsword weapon tree. It is in fact the Buster. No, not the Buster. It's from the Bone Tree. Let's see. Is it the Bone Blade here? Let's look at this. Nope, not the Bone Blade. So it's one of the Jaw Blades. I know that. Giant Jaw Blade, is that it? Yeah, Giant Jaw Blade. That's the one. Now that one has blue sharpness, which is interesting to me that they would give him the Giant Jaw Blade. And for some reason he's had issue getting. I don't even know where he got that from, considering we've seen him with a bow the whole movie. But assuming he just went into the chest and magically found, oh, now just one of these weapons, one in a few, I'll grant you might be upgraded. So if he's got access to a weapon that powerful, which again, this weapon, let's just go off and say it's Giant Jaw Blade. Let's see, where am I at? This is Bone Slasher 3. That's not it. So it is, in fact, let's just say at the very least he's got Giant Jaw Blade 1. That thing's got an 816 raw attack, blue sharpness, a plus 10 to your defense as a buff. Also, very interesting, I believe this is a hidden element. Is this a hidden element? Let's see. I don't believe it's hidden. I think that you might just get... Yeah. So this thing does 240 ice damage, which, fun fact, Diablos is weak to ice damage. So, if he had this weapon on him the entire time, what in the actual hell was he waiting for? When he easily could have just went out there. Granted, he didn't have any armor, but he could have just as easily distracted it, concocted a plan, jumped on it from above, and went down on it. But this man was fucking around for how long? Like, okay. Now, that being said, you're still not gonna have an easy time drilling that into the skull of a Diablos. Those that their whole bread and butter is the frill and the horns to keep, because that's where their power is in their skull. I mean, you're not gonna put a 12 gauge slug into a grizzly bear's head and it's gonna go down. Like that's just not how animals work. This thing's skull. I mean, and granted, it went in because he fell from a great height and planted in it. Then she gets up on there and she's just able to somehow shove it deeper in there. Like this thing's tapered. You're gonna have to really drill it. Like I don't know. There's a lot of the you have to suspend disbelief when it comes to watching this. Like the fact that after being stabbed and poisoned by these Narcillas, she was able to actually keep up and fight hand to hand combat with an actual guild hunter and somehow hold ground and not and almost win. I'm like, no, no, you should actually be dead. I don't even know how you're alive, considering that Narcillas have very strong poisons, but not to mention fangs the size of your fucking fist. Anyhow, when they get to the oasis, the and they see the Apsaros, and she says she wants to drink the water. He says, "Go ahead and drink the water, then." A Cephalos of all fucking things jumps up out of there at her. I'm choosing to believe it came out of the sand and not the water. I don't believe they were that dumb, but they might have been. But the Cephalos are a group species. They live in the deserts, yes, but they live in groups with a Cephadrome being the leader. So why was there one lone Cephalos all by itself in the New World, which again we've never seen in the New World and have no proof of that existing in the New World? It was just there and just so happened to be by itself jumping out one time. And it was quite small for a Cephalos as well, but and then yes, we get to the scene where the I don't know who he is. I guess you could call him an admiral. I don't know. The guy leading them. Uh he comes up and he starts to try to ward off the Apsaros and fires off a shockwave of some kind of energy or fire or something. This man is using a switch axe. The switch axe has no such capabilities. It does no such thing. I don't understand where they got that from. They literally pulled that one right out of their asses. It does not do that. Also, it doesn't matter what file you have. You could have a power file. You could have an elemental fire file. There is no file that will actually set your switch axe on fire. And there is nothing that will set dual blades on fire. Demon mode does not set them on fire. It just coats them in a demonic energy. And that's not even a thing. That's just a visual flavor thing. What it does is it increases your affinity and your attack and gives you a different moveset and things like that. It does not set the blades on fire. I don't know where they got that from. And oh yes, then so they speak of the ancient civilization. We're on the new continent. There's been no ever evidence that the ancient civilization even spanned to the new continent. But let's just suspend disbelief and say that it does. They then say that their advancements in technology was their undoing and that's what destroyed them. No. Now, I will say that it led to that, but the technology did not turn on them. Their creation of the equal dragon weapon was in part of why Fatalis came through and destroyed everything. Which that in and of itself is what ended them. Wake up, John! You're falling asleep on me, my friend.
Sorry about that.
Man, you're gonna make me seem like I'm a boring old man.
No, it's just like hearing about the movie being as boring as it was is kind of having its impact.
Now, I had to watch it.
Oh, I watched it before too, but I was very inebriated,
Yeah,
and I don't know the games or the lore.
that's about probably the only way I could have watched this. I didn't even get a chance. I was so numb-minded I couldn't even get into my shit. But Yeah, so no. Also they speak of the ancient civilizations technology being a bad thing. I'm like, dude, you're wielding a switch axe. They made that. That's where that comes from. We found blueprints that they used to make that. But um, so yeah, no, the ancient civilization fell because of Fatalis coming through and wrecking shit because they decided to make the equal dragon weapon. Let's see. He then claims that the ancient civilization used Rathalos as guard dogs of some sort. No, they did not. They, in fact, did not need to. They were so powerful that they were hunting elder dragons for building material. They did not need a Rathalos, nor would they have any need. Like, anyway, and then all the information that this movie gives you about the Rathalos is horrible and inaccurate. The only thing even close is the fact of him saying that they're weak when they're about to breathe fire. Yeah, but I mean that's true of all the monsters. The moment they start to fire, you can just run around and get a hit in and run off. That's about it. They are not invincible by any means. I've hunted enough to know. They are not only weak when they're about to breathe fire. That's also a fucking lie. Every bit of it. The Rathalos would never take a quadrupedal stance, as we see it do a few times. There's a few times in the movie where it stands on its wings and legs like it's from Skyrim. Rathalos don't do that. They will not do that because their wings have no fucking way of bending like that. Like not only that, but like there's no purpose for it. There's no actual need for them to ever do that. They want to keep their wings as good as they can because that's their whole method of living is because they can fly. They base it around that. Like there's no way they would reason that they would walk on them. Also, there is no Rathalos anywhere near that big, save maybe Silver. Maybe a Silver Rathalos could get that big. I might be willing to believe that. But this isn't even a Dread King. This isn't even Silver. It's not even Azure. It's just a straight Rathalos. They're not that big. I've never ever encountered a Rathalos that fucking big. That is absurd. Given the proportions from what I showed you on that trailer where you can see her running toward it, given those proportions, the size of her and the size of that thing's torso is the size of the Lao Shan Lung's head. That is way too fucking big for a Rathalos. Like, that is absurdity. But we'll move on from there to... Oh yes, the fact that she survives anything in this movie is a fucking astonishment and an affront to anything human. I watched this motherfucker get tossed around like a rag doll by everything imaginable. Survived a helicopter crash after it was bitten in half by a Rathalos, granted. Then he destroys an entire, like, I don't even know what the fuck kind of plane that was at the end there he blew up, but that thing blew up almost in her face, sent her ass reeling backwards through the air into the wreckage of another plane, and she lived that shit too. I'm like, there's no fucking way. She shouldn't have even lived past that Narcella's poisoning her, but let alone fighting a Diablos, fighting a Rathalos, almost getting eaten by a Cephalos. Like, no. Anyway, the whole method of killing the Rathalos was because she fired a flare into its mouth when it was breathing fire. There is no Rathalos that takes that long to charge a fireball. The only time I've ever seen a charge on a fireball like that was from a Silver Rathalos in Sunbreak, and that was on a new move they added to the moveset. And there was really no stopping him unless you have like the command grab shit to stop him, or you can flinch him out of it, which is damn near impossible as well. And if you get hit by that, it's game over, instantaneous death. But there's no rhyme or reason it would have taken that long to charge a fucking fire blast. Those things will sit there, and if they want to, they'll stop. Boom, 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 triple blasts if they're mad enough. Like it's not a thing that takes 3 minutes to charge. It's not the Spirit Bomb. And then in the very end, just the way that they're doing weaponry, like all of a sudden now, like it's a thing that you can do in the new games where you can go back to your camp, you can switch your weapons out, and go back out in the hunt with a new weapon. This motherfucker comes in with the bow, and then not 10 seconds later has an insect glaive. Where did he get it? How did he acquire it? And why is he using it without a kinsect? That's not a thing you do. That's a combo. That's the package deal. She's using a sword without a shield, and once again, this other motherfucker is coming up in there using some kind of shockwave attack with a switch axe that does not exist. Nobody from the ancient civilization is still alive, very obviously. So I don't know who that guy in the end credit scene is. I don't know what they're trying to get at with that. But humanity is actually fucked. Because Gore Magala had access to the human realm for a minute there. So assuming that any part of him is there, the frenzy virus can most definitely spread across the globe and kill all of humanity damn near. Um, but also, why Gore Magala of all creatures did you put him there? Gore Magala has never been seen in the New Continent until Rise introduced him in Sunbreak, and even so, Gore Magala had no reason to be there. Like this is an unclassified monster that turns into an elder dragon. We don't know a lot about them, but what we can tell you is that there's actually no fucking reason that a monster of that caliber would be hanging around in just because. And in the amount of time it took for her to go to her world, have a Rathlos come out, everyone come out and fight that Rathlos, a Gore Magala just happened to be on the back burner to come out and start throwing hands. Like, are they trying to say the guy in the after credits scene is controlling the monsters? If so, that's kind of stupid, but whatever. So, this movie's fucking bad. That
Well,
is where I will leave you there.
to move us off of the movie thing, let's kind of go into the video games. Um, I've only played the one on the Wii that you said was not very well done, but I have seen a lot from the one that had the ice expansion.
Yeah.
Uh, like what? Which ones would you recommend, or is there anything particular about the Wii one that's kind of like a hey, if you had a bad experience, like what you got when it comes to the video games?
Given the fact that the first Monster Hunter is almost unplayable in the current age, simply due to the servers not being active anymore, and Dose we don't talk about. So the only game really I can tell you to start on would be maybe Freedom or Freedom Unite or Monster Hunter Portable Second, I think it's called. Um, Anywhere in the second generation really is a good starting point. And moving from there, Try is only bad if you play it with a Wiimote and a nunchuck, and the underwater sequences, which there aren't a lot, but the main like ending fight involves it too, so it kind of is a little weird. I I don't. The mechanic was not a bad concept, not a bad mid execution, because you released it before you had it really thought out fully. I feel, and you also released it on the Nintendo Wii, so that in and of itself says some stuff. Uh, and yeah, they had the Pro Controller released the same year as this game, but who wants to have to go out and buy a brand new remote at new market price just to play one game properly? That's not really, And I don't know. It's just Try was good. It wasn't great. And as I said in my laggy ranking video on my channel, I don't think he was given a fair deal. I think he was given a raw deal. Bad hand dealt. And I'm hoping he comes back in Wilds and actually gets a good chance at it. But all of the fourth gen games I can't really complain about. They're pretty solid. Iceborne kind of took the wind out of the sails of World. It did add a lot of good things, but just as much as it added good, it fucked a lot of things up. And the majority of that came from the Clutch Claw. That really fucked up the flow of everything.
All right. Well, let's move into some of the more specific questions I've got. Like you've mentioned elements multiple times. What all elements are optionable or fine? Like what all does the game include?
So the game includes 5 elements and 4 ailments as of current stance in Monster Hunter. So we have your fire, your water, thunder, ice, and dragon. These are your 5 elements. These elements can inflict various blights now, as well as, at least from the monsters, they'll inflict some blight to you. And various monsters are weak to various elements, and their subspecies will sometimes flip it and be an opposite, a polar opposite to them. The ailments consist of paralysis, poison, sleep, and now blast, as of the 3rd generation, thanks to the introduction of Brachydios. So blast basically is you constantly hit a monster with the ailment, and once it accumulates enough of the blast ailment, it'll set off a mass explosion on the monster and deal a very good chunk of damage to them. Paralysis and poison are pretty self-explanatory. Sleep, it just knocks the monster out. Now, each time you activate an ailment, the second and subsequent doses you have to have a lot more, and in some cases the monster just won't enter that state again because it's so used to your ailment. In terms of the elements, it just depends on, certain monsters weapons will give you a better deal in the element that you're trying to get, such as a Kirin will give a lot more thunder element than say a Kezu. Rajang gives a lot of thunder element. Zenogre. The thing is that there's not a lot of monsters that give you thunder element weapons, but there's a few monsters who are really weak to thunder, and I mean really weak to thunder, and you kind of want to get it for them because they're really tough if you don't have it. But the majority of monsters are weak to fire, and dragon is like pretty much one of your only safe bets against an elder dragon is to just hit them with dragon element.
All right. So I'm assuming talking about getting different weapons also includes like the crafting system.
Yeah.
So uh, give us a little go over of how the crafting system actually works for the different armor and weapons.
So typically, what you'll need to do is when you start out, you'll have your basic issued stuff. In the older gens, you would have maybe one set. I know in Freedom Unite, they gave you one of everything, and I believe everything after that gives you one of everything. But I want to say GU gives you one of everything of each tree. Anyway, you start out with 2 basic trees. You have a bone tree, which is your weapons made from the natural materials you get from monsters and whatnot, and you have an ore tree, which is from the metals that you can get from mining in the world. Um, Armors are kind of similar, but when you get toward later in the games, the metal armors kind of tater off, and it's mostly just monster armors. Um, so it basically just depends on what you want to go for. Like if you want to build Anjanath armor, your best bet to go hunting a bunch of Anjanath because you're going to need a lot of their materials. But as you get into the higher leveled armors, you need higher ranking materials like plates and jewels and medullas and some specific stuff that you can only get from certain monsters that are like in deviant mode or apex ones or risen or anything like that. But the creation of armor itself is one of those things that kind of ties into the lore of Fatalis a bit, which is very, very sadistic and interesting. Weapons and armor being made from monsters is kind of seen as one of those things, at least by sentient monsters, as that's fucked up. But that's whenever we go into Fatalis. But basically, the whole thing is you need to grind these monsters because they have drop rates and they're not always going to have the thing you need. Like if you need a jewel, Those monsters may not have that jewel. You may have to hunt several of them before you can get one. Um, so I mean, in newer games, it's a lot easier because you can get event items like certain tickets, or you can play certain mini games to get tickets that you can exchange for these items, and you don't have to hunt the monsters over and over. But there are some items that even that won't give you, that if you don't get them from the monster, you're just not going to get your stuff. But it's usually very, very worth the time and effort it takes. If it's ever not, then that's a big, big problem, and people usually don't tend to wear that armor.
Fair enough. Um, what are the different kind of weapons that actually exist? Like, I heard you talk about the shift axe or whatever it was, and we discussed the double blades,
Yeah.
uh,
So your
dual swords
original
thing from earlier.
your original starting weapons consisted of the great sword, the long sword, the sword and shield, the dual blades, the hammer, the hunting horn, the lance, the gun lance, the light bow gun, the heavy bow gun, and the bow. And these weapons could be, back in the older days, you could, if you were upgrading them, you could interchange them. Like you could upgrade a hammer into a horn at certain points, depending on what kind it was, or any of these weapons really could be done that way. But later on, in third, they introduced the switch axe, which was one of the big selling points for Try was the underwater mechanic. The so the underwater mechanic was a big selling point, and the switch axe was a big selling point because that was a new weapon, and anytime they introduce new weapons, people go, "Ooh, that's gonna be good." And the switch axe is what I used when I played Trial, like mostly. Not only because Try, for whatever reason, removed like a good bit of the weapons, but also because it was just a new weapon in general, and I wanted to try it. They did remove quite a few weapons, which is really odd, but they also then added in light, medium, and heavy bowgun materials, which was also kind of strange. They ditched all of that in the fourth gen for sure. And the fourth gen is when they added the insect glaive, and I believe they also added in the charge blade at that time. So the switch axe, great sword's explanatory. It's the big sword. You can use it for blocking and such. Long sword is just a katana. You just run around with a big, basically a nodachi. Um, sword and shield is a sword and shield. They've added oils to it in the fourth gen, but I don't think that's a thing anymore. And they would affect certain little things. Dual blades are just as you see, dual blades. You can enter the demon mode, and now there's an archdemon mode, and that basically just enhances your your abilities on and of themselves. The hammer is basically just hit it till it stops moving. That's essentially how you do that. And then there's the hunting horn is one of my favorites, and I usually use it the most whenever I can. Um, if I'm ever playing, games that it's harder in the old gens because you don't know you have to actually write fucking sheet music on a spare piece of paper to memorize what you can actually play. But you play melodies as you're attacking, and then you can enter into your song mode and start playing on it, and it gives you and your allies buffs, which is very helpful. I'm a big fan of the ones from like Espinas, Zenogre, Fatalis. All of theirs look like electric guitars, and is really cool. And they actually play the monster's theme through them, which is very nice. Um, there are some horns that look like monsters, and they'll make the calls, which is cool. The lance is just a lance. You're standing like it's a giant lance with a tower shield kind of deal. The gun lance is similar, but it can shoot things. Like you just poke, poke, bam, poke, bam, and just blast them in the face. Um, the switch axe is an axe which you swing like a maniac, just going around slapping things with a giant axe. And then when you get your files filled up, you'll enter into your sword gauge, which it'll switch into a great sword, and you can start slashing around with that. And when you get that meter filled, you can shove it into the monster, and then grab onto them and start emptying your files into the monster until it eventually just explodes, and you've done a shitload of damage. Charge blades are a sword and shield, which have a that's Big's favorite thing to use. Um, you go around and you attack, and that fills your vials. And eventually, when you have max vials, you can't hit with your sword anymore. It's red hot. You put it into the shield, and it can charge the shield, and the shield does more protection. You can then get it hot again, and you can put all the vials into basically when you shove the sword into the shield expands into an axe head, and it extends, and you have basically a giant axe. But if you time it right, you can put all those files into a new form they've given it in Iceborne, where the axe is a giant spinning saw blade, pretty much now. That's also a ancient civilization weapon. Um, your bow guns are basically just you know crossbows essentially. Bow and arrow is self-explanatory. Um, was basically it. The insect. I forgot to talk about the insect glaive. Yeah, the insect glaive is a giant glaive, and you get a kinsect that comes with it, and you can interchange these kinsects, and it's kind of like falconeering, but with a giant bug on your arm, and you just send it to attack the monster, and it will bring back essences from it to give you buffs, and certain ones will have like clouds that come off when they attack, and if you hit those clouds, depending on what cloud it is, it deals poison damage, it can heal you, it can do blast element, and things like that.
All right. Uh, the armor for it, was it anything like light, medium, and heavy, or just like better monster materials for better armor?
Well, back in the day, there was a distinction between Blade Master armor and Gunner armor, and you would have to make your choice depending on, um, you know, which of the two you would use. The Gunner armor was always physically weaker, but you were never supposed to fight the monster head on to begin with. Your whole goal was to be in the back, firing off shots. And while it gave you less defense, it did give you better skills aimed toward the guns. Like there are some skills that Blade Master just gives you, but those skills might be better toward a sword than a hammer. But when it comes to the gunner, it's the gun. That's all you've got is gunner and bow. So any skill's good for any weapon. Unless it's the ammo coating ones, but those usually are coincided as ammo slash coating. It works for both, so you don't really have to worry. But nowadays you can just mix and match any armors together. So the only thing that matters is the higher the ranking they are, not only the higher their base defense, which all defense can be upgraded with armor spheres, but the better the skills are that come with that armor, and the more slots you might have to put in jewels to add more skills and upgrade certain ones that are already on there. So it is always better to get better armor. You never want to go into a fight on a high rank with low rank armor if you can help it. And that's another big critique I have about Iceborne is the moment you I was running builds, I was sub 5 minute speed running like Nergigante at the end of that game, and I took that very same build into Iceborne, and I hardly got through it with my fucking teeth intact fighting that first Biritotis. Like the difficulty spike was way out of proportion for what it should have been, but that's just I don't know what the fuck they were thinking there.
All right. So, what were the tools and field equipment like, if any, in the game?
Let's see. It does vary by generation. It does change a lot. Like flutes aren't a thing anymore, but there used to be flutes you could take, and regular flutes would attract monsters. Certain monsters would come to your area. This was back before we had the open world like you see in Iceborne. This was like when you had loading screens between each area. But you could call monsters to you and have them come down. Then there were antidote flutes, which would hit everybody around with an antidote. Healing flutes, demon flutes, which would give everyone an attack buff, and defense. There was a defense variant. Um, Most of the healing items have stayed the same. The potions and mega potions, ancient potion, max potion. Um, the only things that might change is the logos, like the icons. Like I know ancient potions used to look like gunpowder, and now they look like max potions. So there's just little changes here and there. But the biggest thing, like the oils I mentioned with the sword and shield, those aren't around anymore. I haven't seen them. So that's something that they definitely did get rid of. That the flutes are gone. Um, the newer things are like in World there were slinger shots. You could use, and a lot of those were just slingshot variants of other things like you used to have flash bombs, which we still have. You got flash bombs, which are very useful, but again, if you use too many, then the monster just doesn't care anymore. Sonic bombs are good, but they're only useful on certain creatures. There's we don't have to use paintballs anymore because now the monster is just always on your map. But back in the older games, you had to paintball a monster or have a certain armor skill so you could see where it was. Otherwise, you might spend 20 minutes trying to find the sumbitch. Um, let's see. Deodorant was a thing you had to have because there were some nasty, nasty sons of bitches, namely Kangalala, who would actually not just fart but throw his shit at you. So you if you got hit with that, you couldn't use any items except for the deodorant. So that was kind of a big important thing to have when fighting certain monsters was deodorant. Antidotes are a thing everyone has nowadays. It's mostly just in terms of trinkets and tools and things like that. There's not a lot. The mantles were a big thing in World, but those aren't around anymore. The biggest thing with Rise now is like wire bugs, which are constantly refilling, and you can get a third one on the field, and it really makes the game a lot easier. I tried playing World not long ago, and I had been used to Rise, and I tried wire bug escaping after I got slapped, and I was like, oh no, that's right, I have to put in some effort, some skill to get out of this situation. I've been playing Freedom Unite on my channel, and half the time I'll be beating on something, and it'll run off, and I'm like, okay, fuck, I didn't paintball it. Where the hell did it go? Oh god, and I'll be chasing it for 5 minutes trying to find out where he went. I'm like, this is a bitch. There are traps. You can bring shock traps, which you can plant on the ground and they'll stun them by shocking them. There are some who aren't affected by that. Rajang is no longer affected by them. He'll just rip them out of the ground and crush them and then look at you like, did you think that was going to work? Gypsarus back in the old games wasn't affected by them because he was like rubbery hide. He had this weird rubbery existence, like he ate the gum gum fruit or some shit. There were pitfall traps, which that's just a pitfall trap. Garuga, Yayan Garuga is unique in the fact that he does not fall for traps. You have to actually like have him run into them. Like he won't just walk into them like most monsters will. You have to trick him into going into them. But there's not a lot anymore. But not a lot's needed anymore because they add more to like weapon abilities and the wire bugs and clutch claws and all this crap. So there's not a lot of need for tools anymore.
Mhm. Well, let's start getting into some of the like more notable monsters. So, what would you say are some of the coolest or prettiest looking monsters?
Coolest. Nergigante's got a really good design to him. He's the one that I know you've seen here. I can actually pull up some pictures and place them on here. Let's just pull up Nergigante. Um, I don't believe he was officially a flagship for World, but I do remember him being on World's like roster. Like there was a version of World that came out for the PS5, and it was anybody who had bought it previously could get that, and it was just World, no Iceborne update, no Iceborne DLC. It was like what World used to be, and then Nergigante was the one on there. So this is Nergigante. This is by far one of the coolest designs I have seen for an Elder Dragon, any monster really. I love the orange and blacks that you can see on there. Just the big menacing horns and the spikes that just grow all down. And this guy eats Elder Dragons. Like that's his whole gimmick is he hunts and eats other Elder Dragons. Like this guy is not something you want to fuck around with. Let's see. One is a variant of the Visarius, which is only seen in the I think it's called the Elderwoods, but the Crystal Visarius is there. It is. This is the Crystal Visarius. Normally they're just like gray and stone colored, but this one's got like a pink, like this one here is. This is what they normally look like, but that one gets a pink quartz-like crystal from it, which is very nice, very interesting. the any of the like the variants to like silver Rathalos is very majestic. I just love the silver, and then of course you have gold Rathian. Well, that's not a Rathian, that's a Rathalos, but they painted it gold. Like gold Rathian and silver Rathalos are I love their designs. Of course, most people won't be very surprised by this, but Nargacuga, I do think has a very good design to him. And unfortunately, I've realized now I have to be very careful when I'm pulling these up because there are certain communities who also like certain monsters more than others. And you gotta be really careful when you Google certain monsters nowadays. Nargacuga being one of them. I should have thought of that before I just wildly, haphazardly typed his name into Google search. Tigrex. Oh god, I might have to be careful with this one too. Tigrex is another one. Actually, a cousin to Nargacuga. And they used to share a classification as pseudo wyverns. Them and Barioth. But I think by the time Barioth came into play, they had already reclassified them as flying wyverns. But Barioth, I love the saber-toothed cat design on him. Very nice. Let's see. Yeah, let me look up Yamasukami. Yamasukami is one of the this most unique monsters in Monster Hunter. This is Yamasukami. And his whole thing is he just floats around, and when he starts to get close to the ground, he'll just start sucking up the terrain and just eating. It doesn't matter what's there, he'll just start eating it. And then the digestive system is what lets him float, is all the gases that build up when he's digesting. And he has the most disturbingly human teeth. It's very weird. It's very odd, just looking at that. I'll do like two more. Shenge Orin is interesting because he wears Lao Shanlung's skull like a shell. He's just a giant crab. Like, that is a big boy crab. And as you can see by the look at this image. Well, that's a very bad image. It's very small. But like looking at the image here of this hunter compared to this guy, this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. He wears the Lao Shanlung head, the skull, as if it was a shell. That's what the shell is a Lao Shanlung's skull. So what that is, right? That's the size of the torso on that Rathalos from that movie. Like, that's how big they had that fucking thing. There's no Rathalos that big. Even Silver doesn't get that big. So, let's see. I'm trying to think of like a really pretty one. Namiel. Oh yeah, Namiel is really pretty. Look at this thing. This is like, it's like if you mixed an electric eel with a dragon and a jellyfish. Like, it's fucking crazy. Oh yeah, alright. Actually, last one, though. This is another one of the most unique designs I've ever seen. I don't know who this is. I didn't mean to type this in. But, Chameleos is one of the most unique monsters I've ever seen. This thing is literally a chameleon dragon. And he also has this weird breath attack that inflicts you with that shit you need deodorant for. That is Risen Chameleos. That's like one that got hit with the Frenzy virus and didn't survive to become Apex, I think. But he's undead or something. But that's Chameleos. I love Chameleos. The tail, the tongue, the horned chameleon inspiration there. That's just some of them there. But he can also steal your shit out of your inventory. He's one of those that can do that. So that's really another thing to look out for, because he will do it, and it's annoying as piss when he steals your last potion, and you're like, oh no, please, I'm too weak, no.
All right.
I need to turn my ceiling fan
Well, let's move on to biggest monsters, then the most powerful.
Oh boy, big. Let's see. I gotta turn that off. I'll turn this on. Turn on ceiling fan. There we go. Gotta do my ceiling fan turn on. So the biggest monsters I do believe canonically the biggest would be Dalameter. Let me pull up a fucking image of Dalameter. So Dalameter is one of the only snake-shaped wyverns. He's not technically a snake wyvern. He is an elder dragon, but it's still really unique that he is only one of the few there. But Dalamaters are ginormous. As you can see, there's an image here of a blue whale in our world compared to him, and he's still not even on the screen fully. These things are fucking enormous. Let me see if I can find a picture. Yeah, see, this is what I was talking about down here. Yep, there's a lot of the images of the community who like Dalamater. Um, let's see. I'm trying to see. I'm going to quickly scroll past them, and I think that should be all of them. Let's see. That's Malzeno. I don't know why that's there. I don't see a picture of a hunter next to one. But they are ginormous, as I'm sure you remember, because you actually brought it up in the Rotten Vale. There are skeletons, giant skeletons, that make up that ecosystem, and they are in fact of the Dalameter. Let's see.
Yeah, that was just a pretty cool setting
Yeah.
idea, honestly.
So this is him compared to some hunters. As you can see, they they are pretty fucking giant.
Alrighty then.
The only ones that come close, like Zoromagoros, is another one that's pretty large, somewhat in charge. He's one of the few that are classified as colossal, um, like siege monsters. Him, Lao Shenlong, I think Dire Moralis also falls into this size category. They're just giant. I think that might have been. Yep, that's Dire Moralis. Next is Oromagros right there. Um, well, that's a rough design. It's a meme thing. There you go. There's Vitalis and Dire Moralis. Again, a meme thing, but you know, basically, Dire Moralis as well as Vitalis. I'm trying to close my share there. When it comes into terms of power, size isn't always everything. Fatalis is one of the more like in terms of an elder dragon, you know, he's on the smaller end or maybe the medium end, but he is canonically Fatalis is the most powerful creature to exist. Um, there are a select few elder dragons who, even when they were being created and when they were about to be announced, Capcom was told, do not say anything about them. You are not allowed to acknowledge that these even exist. These were called first class danger wyverns or first class danger monsters, something like that. And eventually were dubbed the term black dragons. And the black dragons consist of the Fatalis, Crimson Fatalis, White Fatalis, Dire Moralis, and Elatrion. And it's kind of up in the air whether or not Sappy Jiva counts. We're pretty sure that Capcom's not going to make them one. If anything, they'll make it a red dragon, but that'll be a new classification for whenever that comes around. But White Fatalis, like we talked about the ancient civilization when it came around on the movie, Fatalis rolled in because humanity was taking on like Kushala Daora, the dragon whose body is made of steel. I think I told you about it at one point. Humanity was hunting those things on such a regular basis. Like that's the whole reason behind why elder dragons are so few and far between, and you don't see them a lot. And the reason we don't know a lot about them is because of that. Is because we damn near hunted them all to extinction. Back in the ancient civilization days, they were killing Kushala Daora and building like buildings out of these things' bodies, like using them as construction materials, like we do with steel beams nowadays. And they were just doing this shit left and right. There was a whole war with dragons, and eventually we killed, like, I think it was 100 of them had been slain and morphed into what they dubbed the equal dragon weapon. And this was basically like have you ever seen? You remember the '99 Godzilla movie, the one that Japan just absolutely fucking hated that it existed.
Yeah.
So they made a cartoon series afterward.
No, I didn't.
Well, they made a cartoon series afterward, and in the final episode or one of the final episodes, so basically the series follows at the end credits of that movie. There's the baby that's still there. The show follows that baby, and at the end, it's shown the government took the Godzilla that was there in the movie. They took its body and cybernetically enhanced it to make it a Mecha Godzilla kind of deal. So it was like a cybernetic corpse, basically just being walked around. And that's basically what humanity did to these hundreds of elder dragons they'd slain. They made them into the equal dragon weapon, which was just so fucking absurdly powerful that it would just wipe out all the dragons if it was let to. Fatalis rolls in and is like, "This is fucking stupid. You're stupid. Stop being stupid." And proceeds to just wipe out the whole fucking civilization. Like, he wipes everything from the face of the earth, scorched earth. He takes hunters, and he saw that they were killing dragons and wearing their armor made from their bodies. Fatalis would hold a hunter to his body and use his breath to melt them onto his hide as a mockery of what they were doing and as an intimidation tactic. He is sentient. He's fully aware of what he's doing. And he did this so many times that his armor became nigh impenetrable. And this particular Fatalis lived for so long that when we find him in the second generation, he is the white Fatalis. He has grown so old, his scales have turned white, and he has grown like a beard and hair and shit. And he no longer has fire, but rather crimson lightning, dragon element kind of shit going on. Like, he's absurdly powerful. Motherfucker shows up through a fucking almost what looks like a wormhole coming out of an eclipse. Like, he's fucking cracked. Crimson Fatalis, I believe, is the one that they say, or no, I think the white one also is the one that wiped out Castle Strahd. And the Crimson one was living in Castle Strahd. And then some hunters busted his horn off, beat his ass, and he ran off to a volcano. And he got so butthurt at losing that he got so mad that the hate turned him red. And when his horn grew back like super fucking weird and long, and he for some reason got the ability to summon meteors. So he could just call meteors down from the sky, which there's no explanation to that. No one knows why. Even people who try to make ecology make sense in this world don't even know what to do with him anymore. And there's the regular Black Fatalis, which is like the one in Iceborne that everyone sees. Yeah, there's two stronger versions of that. So yeah, that's fun. But it's weird that when I like look at my camera and I look back, it's almost like I'm not looking at the. I don't know. But Dire Morales was said to be a world-ending scenario. Like these dragons are so powerful that it's stated by the guild that they could wipe out all of humanity and most life on the world like that if they wanted to. That's why they're so rare and like they're so like the guild usually says, "Hey, if you see one, don't say anything because it could induce worldwide panic if one even exists." A lot of people thought Fatalis was a myth until we found one in second gen. Like even in lore in the game, they thought he didn't exist. But the armor of Fatalis, the description of the armor, it says that the soul of Fatalis lives in the armor, and if you wear the full set long enough, it'll corrupt you. And hunters who wear it will vanish and never be seen again. And it is thought that the armor eventually, like, Fatalis has a regenerative property, and it's thought that no matter what you do, it's like Cell from Dragon Ball. It doesn't matter how many times you cut him up, he will regenerate and reform into a new Fatalis, or quite possibly the same Fatalis. So it's said that maybe the hunters are possessed by Fatalis, and they leave so he can regrow into a new form. There's actually in Freedom Unite and the games that take place in Poke Village, there is a hidden cave in the farm with a giant greatsword. And it looks just like the greatsword you can make from Fatalis, but it's gigantic, which is theorized that even the weapons themselves will grow back into Fatalis at a certain point in their time. Um, Dire Morales was endangering the oceans. I think he was going to raise the temperatures of the ocean to boiling point or do some crazy, like, destroying the land shit. I can't remember. I never actually got to him. Elatrion is dangerous because Elatrion can control all five elements in one monster, which that in and of itself is a nightmare. But it's crazy. That one is a big hated monster. People don't like fighting Elatrion. I don't like fighting Elatrion. I've never gotten a good chance to fight it because you can really only fight it nowadays with friends, and anytime I get on there, there's always somebody that doesn't know what to do. But there's also the fact that Elatrion is given all the Black Dragons have instant kill moves, and if you don't, you know, you're all dead. At the moment that shit goes off, you're all dead, and it's damn near impossible to get out of it. Yeah, I don't even think you can Farcaster back to the camp anymore. But yeah, no, that's the Black Dragons are just the end all be all, and Fatalis is the king of all of them right now. White being at the top, which we haven't seen White or Crimson in the new gens. We've only seen Black. So, given that Wilds is coming out, maybe we'll see Crimson and White come back. I don't know.
Okay. Let's
Oh,
see.
my bones, my
What
bones.
are some of your favorite locations?
Mm, definitely the snowy mountains, breathtaking, beautiful. Just just the cutscenes that come with them, and just looking out at the music behind them. It just when you look out and you see the giant mountain in the back, and it's just covered in the perfect amount of snow, and it's glacial, and it's got the popo all around it. It's very very beautiful, very breathtaking. It's even got some lore to it, some ecology uniqueness with it. Um, let's see. I love the Forest and Hills. That's actually the first location you ever go to in Monster Hunter. Is the Forest and Hills. I went there in the first game. I played for a little bit. Freedom Unite had it. All the subsequent ones really like GU they had it there because they had all the locations in GU. But GU is just a good game. I did like the Deserted Island in Try. That's the one you can go straight to outside of the village. I loved that. The coastal views and just all the little the cave that you can go through, the foresty areas, a little den where the Jaggy hang out. Uh, the town. The town is a location in the second gen. I remember fighting Shinge in there. I remember fighting Rusted Kushala there. It's a very, very, very nice. It's an abandoned town, and you actually got the sense that this town was just now evacuated, like because there's a giant monster coming that way, and you have to defend this. Actually, I don't know if it was actually abandoned or if there was people living there and they evacuated, but it looks like they got out in a fucking hurry because there's a giant monster coming this way. You're the only thing stopping that monster from fucking destroying this whole town, and it really adds some stakes to it. The only other one I'll go over right now is the tower. Tower's great. That's where you fight White Fatalis, Gold Rathian, Silver Rathalos, Yamasukami, all the big end game hitters kind of chill out at the tower. I just like that it's just a small enclosed space. It really feels like a final confrontation kind of area. Like you've ascended the tower and now you have to fight the Lich at the top. At the top of his peak kind of deal. It's very very end of the world saving scenario feel to it. I like it a lot.
All right. Uh, what are some of your favorite characters throughout the series?
We're not really given a lot of character stuff because there's not a lot of story involved a lot of the time. I mean, there is story involved, but it's not like this is John, this is Casey, and they're brothers from they did start doing a little bit more of that in the newer games, but people aren't really into it because we don't know who these people are, and we're never given a reason to care about who they are or what they do. Um, Even in Rise, in Sunbreak, when you get to the fight with Amatsu's from like third gen, I want to say, And there's a whole confrontation with one of the characters who's like, "Oh, you killed my family, and now I'm going to get revenge." I'm like, first of all, dude, you're a merchant. I bought a potion from you like 3 days ago. Second of all, like, what are you gonna do with this little fucking? It's like a wakizashi, or maybe even smaller. I'm like, you're not gonna kill an elder dragon that can literally defy the laws of nature with that. And who are you? What are you doing here? He did what? He killed your family? Boo fucking who? He wiped out like 35 civilizations on his way up here. Like, I don't know. It's just. The only ones really that I loved was in World, there was the Admiral. This man squared up on a full ass Rajang after this motherfucker just got his thunder powers from eating the Kirin horn, and he busted out a final flash. This motherfucker Hulk slammed to the ground, picked up a whole ass boulder, and sat it right in front of that shit and just stood there blocking it like it wasn't even nothing. I'm like, that motherfucker. I went into my room in Iceborne. I have a room, and I put up a fucking poster of that man in my room. I was like, that's a man right there. That's a fucking warrior. That guy's cool. I've always loved the village chief from Poke Village. She's just this little granny. I just love her. She's just this little grandma, and she's got this fucking cat that sits behind her, and he gives you the high rank quest and shit. But she just sits there staring at this fucking fire, like just making these just making these little weird noises, like just sleeping all the day. I'm like, ow, little granny. I like little granny. Uh, the only other named people I really give a shit about like would be Cha Cha maybe. Instead of getting a cat with you in Try, they gave you Cha Cha, who is a juvenile shakalaka, and Cha Cha is just kind of. I mean, he's cool. I like Cha Cha. There's nothing wrong with him. He's a pretty cool dude. Helps out. Has those cool masks that do different shit. Um, I like the big buff chef from World, the cat that we see him in the movie. Um, other than that, it would just be any of the cat, like my cat that I got in Freedom Unite was named Texas, and that was an auto-generated name. I never named him that. I found him. Like it pulled him up in the list. I'm like, is that fucker named Texas? That's awesome. And I grabbed him. And ever since then, when you're given the option in the later games to name them, I've always named him Texas, and I've always dragged him through with me on all kinds of crazy horse shit. So, I mean, yeah, there's not a lot of named individuals really, but the ones that do have anything to do with it, everyone hates the fucking handler in World, and I would say with good reason that she's just a nightmare. She literally is the cause of every fucking issue you have in that game. Like, oh, hey, we did it. We saved the world. I'm like, you didn't save shit. You woke this bitch up. I had to save you from that thing. Not 5 minutes ago, you were doing the same shit in the graveyard, and you woke up a whole ass zombie dragon. What's your deal? Why are you like this? But and then they made the entire Iceborne story about her, and I'm like, A, no one knows what the fuck's going on because they're not paying attention to the story anyway, and B, if they are, no one cares enough about this character for you to have made them the center focus of this fucking DLC. But that's all I've got on
Fair enough.
characters.
All right. What's would you say is your top 3 favorite monsters?
Well, this may come as a shock to you and to many of our viewers. This may come as a big shock, but one of my 3 favorites in the top would be Nargacuga. I don't know, that might come as a surprise that I would like him, so much that I have my name modeled after that, but I'm just here to let you know that's one of them. Let's see. Rajang. Definitely Rajang. Gotta love him. He's just so fucking cool. He's just so cool. It's just fucking Dragon Ball the monster. Like, let me just. Oh yeah, hang on. Let me make sure there's no fucking special art here in the Google. There's one, but at least it's fully clothed, so that's fine. Let me pull up the fucking thing real quick. This guy is just fucking phenomenal. I just love Rajang. He's just so fucking cool. And then they gave him that Furious Rajang form, that deviant that lost its tail and is just constantly in Super Saiyan mode, shooting vital flashes and shit. This thing is fucking cool. This is a Wukong Goku reference in and out. It's actually more of a Vegeta reference, since I guess because it has the final flash, but definitely him. Definitely my boy Nargacuga. Uh, honestly, just Fatalis. I mean, just the really, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna quickly turn my fucking screen share off because there's like 4 of these images that are just straight up from fandoms. If you know what I'm saying. But yeah, that is just fucking crazy. There are some fucking. I'm not one to kink shame, but there's a few of these images that I'm just like, this is Anyway, so just the lore implications alone behind Fatalis are fantastic. Like this one fucking guy is so powerful. He wiped out almost all of humanity within like a night or 3. Like this thing's fucking cracked. Somebody actually did some math once on a video I was watching. Because in Iceborne, when you fight him, there is a moment where he's about to do a mass insta KO, like blast of fire, and you have to hide behind this door in Castle Shroud. You have to raise the door. It's a giant, like, thick ass metal door, and it only takes Fatalis like 15 seconds to melt it to just goo. I mean, this motherfucker is breathing like. After that, it's if you don't break both the horns, it's blue fire. That's how hot this shit is. It's blue straight out the mouth, constantly in streams. Like this guy is absurdly powerful. Not only that, but just him slapping his tail around by walking is enough to take like half your fucking health bar. That thing is overly fucking qualified for his position. I've never like Crimson made me shit bricks. Cause like I remember fighting Fatalis in the 2nd gen, and I was like, okay, finally, that was crazy. And I was like, they were like, okay, cool, you killed Fatalis. Here's your next couple quests. I'm like, okay, cool. Okay, let's just look at it. What is a Crimson Fatalis? What what is? I thought I killed. Why is there an what? What do you mean Crimson? Dude, I got in there. That motherfucker started calling down the stars themselves. I shit my pants. I was like, oh no, oh god. Dude, white is just absurd. White. He's got it. Definitely Fatalis is up there. Like, I'm just gonna group the 3 of them together. But definitely the big daddy himself.
All right. So, out of all the equipment that would be like weapons, armor, or a little item, what would you say would be your favorite?
Out of items, Power Talon, easy, because it you carry it around and it just gives you a straight up attack boost. Now there's a charm, which you combine the charm with. It depends on who's the elder in the game. Like in the 2nd gen, it was Lao Shenlong. You'd combine his claws with them and make the Talon. There's an armor variant too, but the power one specifically, if I had to pick one, that thing it gives you a very decent power boost. If I had to pick anybody's armor sets, it also kind of depends on the game because they kind of change and vary. But if I had to go just off design, we'll say Rise, Sunbreak. Uh, it's hard. I got Furious Rajang. Ooh, Iceborne, Raging Brachydios. Let's see. Kushala Daora's gear from Sunbreak. Brute Tigrix's gear from Sunbreak. Oh man, it's crazy. It's crazy. But I do like the cosmetic skin you can get that just makes it to where you're just a fucking buff bodybuilder dude in a speedo, and you're just running around slapping monsters in a speedo. I love the fact that I can have full Fatalis gear and run around looking like Senator Armstrong from Metal Gear Rising. Nano machines, son. I love that.
All right. Well, if there was any element or two you could add to the game, what would they be?
Um, let's see. It hmm. It might be a cool thing to see some monsters take. There's a lot of monsters who have symbiosis with the environment, um, not just with other monsters, but with plant life like Brachydios and Raging Brachydios. Their whole gimmick is to get their that like this kind of slime that they can get uh, from the environment sometimes, and then that gives them their explosive bits. Um, it might be cool to see some monsters kind of interact with plant life, maybe. Like they can, I don't know, like something about like some pheromone they can release that makes like the vines come up and start attacking you, maybe. Um, or maybe because like the Japanese belief in the elemental system includes not plant, not like grass, but like wood and metal. So it might be cool to see some things like Kushala doesn't really do anything. He has the wind that he uses, but he also can inflict ice blight. I think, or his weapons can have ice element. But I don't know. It's not really easy to do a metal element because like the weapons are made of metal. Um, but maybe something wood like because we have Basarios and Gravios. They're like basically like encased in rock, and Kushala is encased in metal. I mean, maybe we can have somebody like maybe another member of the Primadius classification, but because Grand Golem is covered in rocks, maybe we could have somebody covered in like a monkey covered in wood or something like that.
Hmm. All right. And what about like new monster types or something that you feel is just missing?
I think they need to bring back the pseudo wyvern classification for Tigrex, Nargacuga, and Barioth, and maybe add a few more. Because there's only those three, but there's a lot of threes. There's those three. There's the Carapacians, which are the crabs. They've only got three. They've got Daimyo Hermitor, Shogun Senator, and Shingeorin. Um, the Snake Wyvern only has technically two, three if you want to count the Remobra. Remobras weren't always Snake Wyvern, but they are now. But they're little jobbers. I don't really count them. Um, Najarala and its subspecies are the only two Snake Wyverns. The only other one that looks like that is Dalamadur, but that's an Elder. I think it'd be nice to see some other maybe like there is a bird wyvern called Malfestio, and Malfestio is the only monster that I have ever seen in the franchise that has this unique ability where it do something like it flashes with its wings or sprays some kind of mist out, and it inverts your controls and it makes your controls different. It might be neat to see a Cobra inspired Snake Wyvern that can like use its hood to kind of inflict that kind of effect on people because we haven't seen that effect out of anybody but Malfestio. So he's only been in the fourth gen. So that might be interesting. More Snake Wyverns, more bring back Pseudo Wyvern classification, add maybe some more Carapacians. Maybe. I don't know if they need anybody, but definitely need more Snake Wyverns. Um, maybe some more members to Primadius. I know we just got one, but that might be cool. Um, man, just, what was the one thing? Amphibians only got three. Piscine wyverns need to be abolished. We need to get rid of every single one of them. Fuck everything that is Piscine wyverns. I'll just go ahead and be the one to say it. Nobody likes them. They're fucking garbage. Everything that they are is an abomination and an affront to human decency and mankind. So, fish dragons, go away, please. Um, they need to fucking. this isn't really an addition, but they need to bring back like Magiacris. I really am upset about that. Like they've got Leviathans everywhere. They could easily make him work. But yeah, I think. Oh yeah, a Cantor and Euconlus should not be classified as flying wyverns. They need Elder Dragon status. Those two motherfuckers are absolutely cracked out of their minds. The guild has to keep them separated because if they ever fucking fight, it might actually be the end of the world. The only reason that they're classified as flying wyverns is because on their arms they have the tiniest little nubs of what might have been wings at one point, and that's why they're called flying wyverns. These motherfuckers. I'm gonna fucking type. I know for a damn fact these won't pull up any weird images. So this is a Cantor, and this is Euconlus is like the ice equivalent of this guy, but this is a Cantor. That's him in front of a person. But you can see somewhat on him there. If you look, I can hover over there. Right there off the side of his foot is that little nubbit. And that little nubbit is what is believed to have at one point been like an attachment for a wing to go on there. And a lot of the reasoning for him being classified as a flying wyvern is usually because of that. But this guy has like a fucking Dyson vacuum seal attack where, like, I think that's his roar. Like, he'll suck you in and then he'll fucking roar, and it causes an actual tornado just off him roaring. This thing is a menace to society. And Euconlus is no better. Euconlus is just, like, the fucking Crimson Chin, but it's white. Look at this giant glacier. This is an actual, like, glacial behemoth. And even with this, you can see right there, I guess that's what counts toward him being a flying wyvern.
Yep.
These things need to be a redo. These need a serious redo. These need to be classified as Elder Dragons. I just saw an image. There it is. Yeah, this is the two of them side by side. If these two were ever to fight, the guild does thoroughly believe that the end times would be upon us. So they actively will like go out to where if they see one, they will actively send people out there to like push them away or kill them, so they don't fight each other. It's fucking insanity.
All right. Well, we only have two more things on the list. So, what would an ideal Monster Hunter game be for you?
Hopefully, they're going to be doing this in wilds. That's what we're getting as a gist of what they're doing right now. But my hair makes me look like I got a choker on. What the fuck? Open world, fully open world. That's what we really need, and we almost got that with Rise, or not Rise, with World. World made that. Like that was like the first one where we had no fucking loading scenes or anything. You could just go from one area to the other.
Pass me my soda, please.
Guys, it's the Audi.
It is the Audi.
Oh my god.
Hi.
It's the Audi. But yeah, I would say open world fully.
I got 36 hours.
Other than full open world, I would say we need to have. I would like a new weapon. I don't know what it would be. I'm not the one behind that. I've been thinking, because there is a weapon called the gun hammer, and it's just a hammer that you can make that looks like a revolver like a cylinder, and it does fire damage. But I would like it if we had, like the gun lance, a gun hammer, kind of like that trick weapon you get in the Bloodborne DLC, where you can just like switch it, and when you slap the ground, it just explodes shit. Like that might be fun to have. But definitely open world. You can go around to not just open world in the fact of no loading screens. I'm talking I could go from the Wildspire Waste to the fucking Ancient Forest. I could just travel. Because these biomes are shown to be interconnected, like they are with the Coral Highlands and the Rotten Vale. Those are shown to be interconnected, but you can't get to one straight just going. You have to kind of travel back to the hub and then travel to them. I'm saying we need to be able to move from point A to point B without having to go through the whole. I have to go back to the hub and then go travel there on a quest kind of shit. True open world, new weaponry. having that new mount looks interesting. I was skeptical when they did it with the dogs, the paladins, but it actually was a great asset to having that travel speed factor. Adding in that new creature, whatever the hell it's called in the wilds, is going to be good. Um, from what Big told me, they've even there's been rumor that you might be able to, instead of going back to camp to switch weapons, you might be able to carry more than one weapon on you at a time. That might be interesting to see. I've always wondered. I was like, dude, if I'm hunting these bitches, why am I not allowed to just have more weapons? Like I should, like this isn't like a, oh, I have to follow regulations by the fish and game wardens because I'm out here hunting deer or I'm hunting whatever. Like no, I'm out here trying to save the world. In some cases, like y'all should be rolling out like dragonators attached to wheels out here. Like this isn't a game anymore. I'm not out here for shits and giggles, guys. I'm out here because you asked me to solve the fucking problem. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, it would make the game not. That's more of a me thinking about it as a lore thing more than it is actually a mechanical thing. Like as a mechanical thing, obviously that would be boring and pointless. But yeah, I would say just the biggest thing is just open world, having the monsters interact. Like that was great what World did, like with the turf wars. That was amazing. We'd never seen that. Like that's cool. Having them actually interact with one another and fight each other is fucking crazy. I love that. So just kind of what basically the best Monster Hunter game would be. Do what World did, but better. Do more than what World did. Which I was hoping Rise would have done, but they did not. But still.
All right. Well, the last thing I have on the list is what would you have done as the story of a movie?
Well, the first thing I would have done is not involve the U.S. military. I don't know why they felt the need to involve the U.S. military. um, I wouldn't have done any of the whack ass shit with portals. I don't know what kind of stuff they were smoking in that green room, but yeah, no portal. If I'm gonna make a movie about Monster Hunter, I'll make a movie about Monster Hunter. Following the hunter in any of these games can be a story. Like following in, I remember when I was a kid, I was actually writing up like journal entries and stories and shit about my own experiences in those games. Like you could just there's a whole thing. There's even a story in Freedom Unite, kind of like you start out being hunted by a Tigrex in the mountains, and he knocks you off the mountain. You have amnesia now, and the people of Poke Village find you, and the hunter for that village finds you, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know who you are or where you came from, but I took you in. You're more than welcome to chill out and hang out and be do whatever." And your whole goal at that point is that the only thing you know is that Tigrex knocked your ass off that mountain. So your whole journey is involving getting up to the point where you fight that Tigrex and kill it because of like it basically just took your whole life from you. You don't know who you are anymore. So, and then after that, it's like, hey, there's an even bigger problem we need you to take care of. If you think you're down for it, since you killed that Tigrex and everything. So I think the first movie would be just so like the entire over a half. I'm not even exaggerating. Over half of that movie was them gearing up to fight at Diablos, and the fight with the Diablos didn't even last that long. And then Rathalos was barely on screen. Like I just think that it would be good to show a progression and a build up of the hunter going through the motions of getting new gear, getting new weapons, getting new armor. Really, if I had to make a movie, or if I could make any media, I'd make a show. Because that's a show. If you're going to make a movie, it would be like of a show. Make the show and then make the movie. Kind of like they do with like One Piece. There was like, there's episodes and then there's movies, and then there's episodes and then there's movies. Kind of like that. Because the big fights should be reserved for the movies. Like Triumph over the Tigrex should be its own movie. Triumph over like the end game story boss is a Cantor, so maybe show them fighting a Cantor. Have a movie where they have to fight Fatalis. That but then have a TV show where they're learning how to fight other monsters. And because I've talked about it in my series, like some of these monsters are teaching moments. They're supposed to teach you how to fight. Like Yayan Kutku and most bird wyverns in general teach you how to fight real like flying wyverns because they act so similar, but they're a lot weaker. But they act so similarly, like a Yayan Kutku acts so similarly to a Rathalos that when you come to fight Rathalos, you've killed so many Kutku at this point. You're like, oh, it's just going through the motions. But Rathalos has his own tricks up his sleeve that you gotta account for, which is where coming into the fight with Rathian takes place. You learn from fighting her, and then those two come together. You've learned how to fight a Rathalos without ever fighting him, and by that time, you've trained enough that you should be able to fight him no issues. I just think that the biggest thing is if you're gonna have a movie about a world that already exists, you need to do research into this world, and you need to not include other worlds. Why would you include the fucking U.S. military of all things is beyond me. I would have been even okay if maybe a portal opened up and some guy got sucked into it and he had to learn how to be a hunter, how to talk to these people. He had to learn the ways and eventually slay a monster. But you brought in an entire squadron of the U.S. military, had them all die within like 20 minutes of being in this new world, and then brought the monsters into the real world, and then went back into the monster. Like, you just. What the fuck are we doing? And you threw out the. That's the other thing. You threw the biggest hitters you had out the gate. Nursilla is not a big hitter. But the fact that you threw out so many, which was odd, you threw out an entire Black Diablos, which is significantly stronger than the regular variants. You threw out a whole Rathalos, way bigger than what it should be, and then you, for some reason, decide, you know what, let's just throw in Gormagala. Just a little sprinkling on the cake there. We're just gonna throw in Gormagala and see what happens. Like, no. What the fuck are you thinking? You don't ever fight anything like. I'm just gonna call Gora an elder for this purpose. He's classified as unknown still, even though we know full well what he turns into. But you don't fight elders out of the gate. Ever. That's not a thing you do. That's stupid. That's water deep levels of stupid. Like, that's not a thing you do. But yeah, I would definitely model it after a game, or just come up with something original. But if I come up with something original, I'd have to write that shit down and get back to you because I want to put some effort into that because that would be phenomenal. But it would definitely have to be just stick to one world. Stick to the monsters that should be there. Stick to the monsters that wouldn't instantly vaporize you just for breathing wrong. And just make a good story. Watching somebody overcome insurmountable odds. That's always something people like. But we like it when the person is relatable. I don't want to watch somebody get stabbed, poisoned, thrown around like a rag doll, thrown off a mountain, almost be eaten by several things, get punched in the face once and get knocked unconscious after somehow not getting their ass beat after being stabbed and poisoned by someone who knows how to throw hands. Only to watch this person one shot a giant monster off of sheer luck that they A had a flare on their hand and B held it in an open flame and it didn't explode in their hand. That that movie is terrible. I did not enjoy it. It was not good. It was not
Well,
anything. That was not Monster Hunter. That was fucking. If anything, that was a power trip greater than anything I've seen from Doom Eternal.
uh,
So
well, if anything, go ahead and write that up and make it a video to release on your channel. How we could have and how to do the Monster Hunter movie properly. Extra piece of content here for you.
I'm
But
making my own monster movie.
I think we've probably been doing this for a good minute, but I think we covered Monster Hunter pretty well.
We've been here for almost 20 to 2 hours.
All right. Yeah, that sounds like we've been here a good amount of time. I already have the Elder Scroll questions set up. I'll get those to you before we do um, the actual interview kind of conversation thing.
Right.
Kind of the opposite positions we were doing today. But, yep,
Woo,
guess
everybody.
until next time, we'll catch y'all later.
Bye, everybody.